I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Farmington Board of Education for Monday, May 12th, 2025, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on to our agenda, item 3, recognition.
We honor our teachers who reach 25 years in the profession here in Farmington, and we honor these Farmington educators at convocation. So that's going to be in the fall, right before school starts. And we're just so proud of the number of Farmington teachers reaching that 25th year. We have the best teachers. They're so dedicated. They're hardworking. We just love to take a moment as a Board of Education superintendent, assistant superintendents to celebrate them. And then when convocation happens, they get a beautiful golden apple, each one of them, to celebrate them from the Board of Education. So our 25-year in education recipients are Kimberly Cox, Jeremy Forgione, Lance Goldberg, Stephen Jarvis, Denise Lewis, Alan Lizaraga, Michael Nunes, Colleen Aquino, Robert Perrone, Amber Riccadello, Benjamin Stern, Robin Verone Jobless. And again, we honor these 25-year recipients at convocation where they will receive the Golden Apple as a symbol of their dedication to excellence in education and our appreciation of their hard work each and every day.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I'll speak more about this at convocation, but I would like to say on behalf of the board, as to our 25-year recipients, you know, we ask a lot. We understand that. But you believe in us, and you stay with us, and we believe in you. And we're grateful that you place your trust with us. It's a challenging job teaching in Farmington, and the board understands that and recognizes that. And we thank you for your 25 years of dedication to our children. That's an example not just for your peers, but for the younger teachers that are coming into the profession of what it means to be a part of something greater than yourself as an educator. So on behalf of the board, I just want to express my gratitude and thank you, each of you individually. I look forward to speaking to you more about it at convocation. On to the approval of the minutes. I believe the minutes have been handed out. You want to take a quick second to go through them, guys? You guys all set over here? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the April 8th, 2025 BOE regular meeting?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of the superintendent's report.
Eric Martin, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Stick around for the good part.
Also a Union School parent.
That's
This is
right.
Union School night.
We'll see how you do. Maybe you'll get a cupcake too.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
very much.
But Eric is just a wonderful addition to our leadership team. We're so thrilled he's here, and he's going to provide you with just an overview of the summer curriculum.
Very
projects.
brief overview. I'll start just by saying go Knicks. Fingers crossed. So I think as we just saw through our CAS scholar leaders and through our wonderful Union School presentation, you know, what we accomplish in 10 months, what our teachers work to improve in real time, to help our students, again, to achieve, is undeniable. But summer is a really, really critical time for our district, and it's where we undertake some of our most significant improvement work, especially in terms of continually refining and revising our curriculum. So the board has been presented with a list of over 40 summer curriculum projects that have been budgeted for. These are formulated as far back as October and November through our curriculum coordinating committee. And these projects really kind of adhere to our long-term goals of, again, continually improving our curriculum, our system of teaching and learning, strengthening the units of instruction and the learning opportunities we place before our students. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the projects listed here. Most significantly is the first project listed, our Summer Institute, so I'll just talk briefly about that. So this year it's a 2-day deep learning institute immediately after the school year ends, June 17th and 18th this year, for teachers in grades 7 through 12. We've had over 40 teachers sign up, which is beyond capacity, but we're not going to turn anyone away. And the focus of this year's institute is leveling up instruction, designing powerful tasks for deep thinking and deeper learning. So we've been doing a lot of work in the district around this idea of deeper learning and how we get students thinking more deeply, more of the time on really authentic and engaging tasks. And this year's Summer Institute will continue that work and equip teachers with the knowledge of how to go home in their after hours and in their prep time to design the types of tasks that expose our students to the type of deep learning that we want to see on a consistent basis. Beyond that, as we just take a quick look through the rest of the projects, most of these are around continuing to update and revise our curriculum maps. And a lot of that work centers now on aligning academic expectations and outcomes to our vision of the global citizen. Especially at our high school, that work is really timely because we're due for our NEASC accreditation visit, which the high school is in the midst of preparing for now. And NEASC puts a premium on the fact that a district has a viable curriculum, that curriculum is updated, and that curriculum is in constant and continuous alignment with the district's frameworks for teaching and learning, of which we have our framework for teaching and learning and our vision of the global citizen. So I'll end there with my overview and ask the board if there's any questions related to any of the specific projects listed here.
I have one question,
Sure.
if I may. Just on the culinary, the new curriculum map,
Yep.
1 and 2, so I know we just introduced that last year. Already a change, or is that?
Nope.
just
So the
enhancement?
way you guys will hear new course proposals a little bit later in tonight's meeting. So the board approves, when the board approves a new course to run, given sufficient student interest, of which there were for these 2 courses this year, the first year is considered a pilot year. So the teacher has enough of a skeletal outline to be able to teach the course, but in the teaching of the course, they're kind of developing units and approaches in real time. It's a lot of work to launch a new course. And we give them that summer immediately after to commit the work to a curriculum map with a year's worth of learning behind them. And again, that map will be continually refined and improved over time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, please.
Just a quick question on for all of the, what's the timeline around these? So sorry, maybe.
Great question. Yeah, so the scope of these projects differ from project to project. They don't all carry a standard stipend. We look at the scope of the work and we provide compensation based on scope. That compensation is paid in 2 installments. So teachers are paid the first half of that compensation at the end of the summer, and then they receive coaching and continued feedback around the work with the second half of compensation that's paid out around May 1st. So these are really year-long projects that begin over the summer when teachers have a lot of time to commit, but that work and the coaching and the feedback around the work continues throughout the school year.
So a follow-up question to that then.
Yeah.
So for where it says freshman seminar redesign, is that something
Yep.
that would be applicable for this freshman class coming in, or is that?
It would be. So what they'll spend this summer doing is kind of front-loading the September, October, November to maybe December experiences, and then work on the second half of that work prior to the May 1st compensation payout.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk, Eric, a little bit about Paideia? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so Paideia is a long-standing tradition in Farmington, a very important part of our middle schoolers' experience. But like all things, almost 50 years. I think it's coming up on its in 2 years on its 50th anniversary. It's not going away, but like all things, it needs kind of new life breathed into it. So we have a committee that's formed under Lisa at IAR, and they're looking at ways to kind of expand what our students consider, what they study, how we let student inquiry drive that, how we connect it to students' identities, and how we're always working through Paideia to kind of expand students' knowledge of local history. As local as we can get to Farmington, the better, so that they're learning more about our community and through their projects, meeting kind of that civic-minded contribution of giving back to the preservation of our town's history.
Fantastic. Anyone else? I'm all set. Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome. See you in a bit.
So next, we have our teacher program leadership appointments, and this is a very important document in that teaming is really the core of our work with teachers. each day, and they learn from each other, they collaborate, and that's why we can implement very high-level implementation of curriculum, because they're working together and they have the time to work together. So Veronica will just give a quick overview, see if anyone has any questions.
So, as Kathy said, each year teachers apply for these various leadership opportunities that are either, you can see district-wide at the school level, or that provide leadership at the team level. This level of leadership is essential in both, and should I be using this, maybe?
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm like, it's not green, okay. But this level of leadership is essential in both accelerating ongoing district and school improvement work, and in maintaining coherence across the schools, so the K through 4 schools, but then across our pre-K through 12 programming. I just want to take a moment. This is like a good time for me to just say a thank you. You saw it in action here today. I mean, you know, it's really this idea that we're just grateful for all the people that you see on these pages. They're individuals that, like, as administrators, we rely on, fellow teachers, non-certified staff, students. We all rely on them each day to move the work of teaching and learning forward. It's impossible to talk about all the contributions that these people make, but it's fair to say that they're sort of like where the magic happens, right? You have over here our big district and vision and goals and things that we want to accomplish, and here we have the classroom, and they're really the glue that really is part of the development when we talk about, you know, where our district is headed and these goals. Like when you saw, that was all what they were talking about was mastery learning and students, and really the students taking agency and ownership over that. So it's really those leadership positions that help bridge that sort of vision to practical application in the classroom, sort of bridge there. So I just want to take this chance just to say how much the people on those pages just mean to us and the organization, and we're just so thankful that they serve in those roles. It's one thing to teach, and then to also then take that extra step of leadership so that they're impacting beyond the classroom that they're in. And so for that, I just do want to thank the board. You continue to recognize the importance of that middle level leadership role. And it provides opportunities too for teachers to stay, because teaching can be a very flat kind of organization, but for teachers to feel like there's a place for them to grow, that they can extend some of the leadership beyond their own classroom is very exciting work, and allows, you know, the organization to grow. So thank you for that, for always supporting it. And I do think that this is a place that flourishes because, you know, we're a learning community where we really value both the student growth and the adult growth. And I just feel like these are positions that, you know, help us stretch and challenge ourselves to do what's the next best thing for our organization and our students. So, you know, thank you to all of them, and thank you to all of you for continuing to support these positions. There are some TBDs, which maybe somebody was going to ask about. I'm just anticipating the questions. And I just wanted to say that's just because there's certain positions that we haven't hired for example, or we do have some flux in what grades some teachers might be teaching. So you really want to have somebody who will be teaching that grade, being the team leader in that grade. And so some of those things, some of those details are still being worked out, but I expect within the next 2 weeks or so that most of those positions will be squared away. But they're still kind of in the middle of that. We do have we generally try to tell people by the first week of June. So that's where we are with that. But again, I just to emphasize again that, you know, when you see the students here, and then you saw right behind them Kim Giesing and Kate Campbell, and just you could just see that kind of translation from leadership to the students and what happens on an everyday basis in the classroom. So thank you to all those people again.
Questions? I have a couple. Veronica, you know, you've talked about how this leadership, and first of all, the board absolutely recognizes the value of the mid-tier leadership. Absolutely, you know, it's absolutely critical to our mission and what we're trying to accomplish. My question though is, is there turnover in this leadership? In other words, for example, you know, there's a lot of people I see here that have been in these positions for years. over a decade in some places. Are these people that are teachers that apply every year to get this? And then what is the value of keeping someone in that position who may not necessarily be in a classroom and have forgotten or not necessarily have their practice up to speed? So in other words, if they're providing assistance, whether through curriculum or otherwise, but they're removed from the actual teaching and learning, what's the value in that?
So a couple of things that I would say about it. So first of all, you have, certainly department leaders who do always teach one or two sections, so they stay in touch with the teaching and learning that way. Anybody who's on this list we have different routines for continuing to support their leadership and develop anybody who's in these positions. And because it is yearly, people do have to apply for these on a yearly basis. So if there were if there were other people who stepped up and wanted it, that would be a conversation. People do apply, and sometimes in some of these cases, multiple people apply. And then it's the principal's prerogative as to who would be the best leader in that position. And we've really been trying to say that it would be nice in some of these roles. Some of them are harder to do that with, if it's like a literacy specialist or a math specialist, but not impossible. But certainly with team leaders and other kinds of positions where we do want there to be turnover so that other people have the chances at that leadership role.
Why would it be harder to do with a literacy or a math specialist?
I mean, like I said, not impossible, but it's a big investment in everybody who's in that position. We do lots of development with those people who are in those positions. In that way, that would be, it's a big learning curve for people in that position.
And many of these individuals still teach. There's, like department leaders still teach, and several of the other positions, and even with the math and literacy specialists, they go in and model lessons. So there still is a connection to students in the classroom. And I think what you're saying too is like they've developed skills, they've gone to so many trainings. It's a lot of investment we've put into these individuals over time. But it's not to say that there's not turnover in these positions. That definitely does happen. It's a great leadership opportunity for someone who's looking to go into administration in the future. It's a really unique experience because you're still tied to the classroom, still doing lessons, still working with teachers and coaching teachers before going, totally out of the classroom, which would be more administration.
And many of the administrators that we have in the district started in one of these positions. If they've come up through Farmington, they were a teacher, then we're in one of these leadership positions.
Yeah, many of our principals.
Many of them.
I mean, a few of them, yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of names I recognize over my 16 years here.
Yes.
Certainly. And I would just leave it with, it's, from what I understand, that it's ultimately the building principal's decision on how, for example, a resource teacher is deployed. Okay, thank you. Next.
Okay, so we have our professional appointments, resignations, retirements. We have 4 resignations and 1 retirement.
Thank you. Deeper learning update.
Deeper learning update. I'm just going to say a few words because there's some exciting items in here. So we had a great Washington, D.C. trip. And it was amazing. We were complimented by everyone on how polite and wonderful our students are. We also have economics team are now moving to the National Economics Challenge competition at IAR. Civic-minded contributor service learning projects are going on. And flexible thinking through disciplined thinking in mathematics. In Westwoods, they're doing exploring the world through reading and writing, and as well as an exhibition of learning. At Union, there was a great celebration of nations with families, and of course, our traditional May Day. That happens every year. At East Farms, they're using data to maximize responsive teaching with a focus on what you saw tonight, which is students as agents or leaders of their own learning. At West District, deeper learning experiences in science with an emphasis on career exploration. That's something we're getting more focused in on, is really explicitly talking to students about the careers that are associated with what they're learning. And then at NOAA Community Building together, they went to Park Carousel in Hartford with families and a community event celebrating the tastes, sights, and sounds of NOAA. Wallace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda, item 7, unfinished business, paragraph A, budget impact, budget update. Dan.
Hey, everyone. Get this working. Just a couple quick items for there is one, the Westwoods roof project went out. We got 4 bids on that. Ultimately, Greenwood Industries was selected. They've done, have a history with Farmington. They've done the high school central office project. They've done a roofing project over at Irving Robbins. The winning bid came in at $1.66 million. And the project was slated at 2.1 million, so we're at least in, good shape there. But, obviously there could be overruns or other types of things, but it's nice to know you're already starting and having that, as opposed to getting a bid right at, and now, there's not really much window for error or contingency, so to speak. And the other update for budget impact is currently kindergarten enrollment is actually trending lower than we anticipated, both from the MP 1-year projection we had, but and especially from the Prada one that we had. Probably trending a little bit more over the rollover, which is interesting because we don't really, the push-up one. But when we checked, the push-up one's really coming from births at the town clerk office, kind of from there. So, we're just watching it, we're monitoring it. Really, there's no action to be done at this point because we may get some, enrollment later that kind of balances it, and so we'll just kind of continue to look at it and see, obviously, whatever potential impact that might have. So, those are really the two kind of budget impact, budget update things. I don't know if there's any questions. Happy to answer.
Angela?
Just curious on when you're saying it's lower, is it like lower, there would be one less class per school type, that much lower, or just?
So right now, I'd probably say it'd probably be maybe 2 sections lower, plus or minus, one way or the other.
Throughout the 4 schools? Throughout
Throughout the 4 schools, right? And so same thing, it's a matter of looking to see, where the breaks occur and, where we want class sizes. Certainly we could utilize them all and just, enjoy small class sizes at the kindergarten level, which, is always kind of desirable, but we want to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. But the nice part is, it could also provide some flexibility. Sometimes, you get those weird hot spots where, one school's, 3rd grade all of a sudden pops and you're kind of at that maybe 23, 24, 25, and you want to kind of take a little pressure off there. So like I said, so it provides a lot of flexibility, but really at this point, it's too early to kind of make any definitive decision. So we're just going to continue to monitor, and we'll update you, as we kind of know some more information with that.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think it has to do with the kindergarten cutoff? A little bit, I'm sure, because of the age, right?
So right now, the working theory is, because, we checked with, the people at MP to kind of get their thoughts. The 2 prevailing pieces are that the kindergarten registration probably has some impact on there, but also talking about just the housing market really just kind of slowing down and not getting a lot of, people, who are, not a lot of people are selling their houses, or a lot of times the younger families are having trouble affording houses with the increased mortgage rates and so on. And so I think those are the 2 prevailing, impacts that are driving the lower than expected enrollment numbers.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
Next up, policy update, second reading.
So this is a slide that we reviewed the last time. This is a second reading of the policy updates, policy repeals, new policies, and just an update on a regulation that was updated by Shipman recently, and we already have placed that update due to technical edits from Shipman.
Okay. We've seen all these before. Any other questions? Angela?
I had some questions last time on 5131.911 and then 911A. So I did go back, the questions I had were regarding, it replaces the bullying, I'm gonna quote it exactly.
The bullying policy.
It replaces the bullying policy.
Yeah.
So I felt like at the first reading, I just wanted to know, I don't want to use the term incorrectly, but like the victim of whatever the action is, or the victim's family. I felt like there was, I didn't see as much supporting evidence in the new update to kind of address that group of individuals. And I think you or someone referenced it did replace completely the previous one, which we're using now, which is under the same code, 5131.911. So I reread that policy, the one that's currently in effect. And there are, that current policy, and I don't want to belabor it, but it says, as provided by state law, the safe school climate plan shall include but not limited to, and like 3 of the bullets are directly related to, they use better wording than victim, but one of them says require each school to notify the parents or guardians of a student who commit any verified acts of bullying and the parents of guardians of students against whom such an act were directed, and it gives the time frame. And then part 9 on that says requires each school to invite the parents or guardian of a student against whom such an act was directed to a meeting to communicate to such parents. And then there's one other one, I'm not going to read it, but it relates directly to that.
Yeah.
So I just want to go, say I'm going to vote no to this because I feel like in the current one that we're replacing it with, while I know we're trying to do all of this, like this makes me feel comfortable that it's in the current one because I can say to someone, well, it's in the policy. If you have an issue, like, you're given kind of these, I don't want to say rights, but like these are the 3 things that apply to if you have an issue. I just don't see that in the new one, and I'm not sure if there's an opportunity to add it. I mean, I know we went through this last time as well, but that's just where my hesitation is, that it seems like those 3 bullets were directly related to the student and families of, I'm calling it the victim, they use the better verbiage, and now I don't see that verbiage. So that's just where my head is at. That's my personal opinion. I know others can feel differently, but I just wanted to kind of state that as my reasoning for it.
What's unusual about this policy is CABE wrote it. The legislation directed CABE to write it. So Shipman and Goodwin did not write this policy. Shipman and Goodwin wrote the last one. But this was something that we use CABE, legislation said CABE is to create it, so they created it. I can't imagine in Farmington or anywhere else where, because it is so vital, that we do as much as possible for the victim, the student who was harmed in that particular situation. I don't see that changing, whether it's a safety plan or sometimes there are times where we separate the students. Sometimes we provide additional social work support for a child who has been a victim of bullying. This is a shift in the state with this new way of looking at climate and culture, and there's some enhancements to that, but I don't see what you're saying, what you were highlighting changing at all. I can definitely give the feedback to Shipman on the regulations, but I really can't change the policy. This was something that was mandated at the legislative level, and basically we take the CABE policy and we implement that policy. Regulations are more what Shipman helps us with, but I definitely will give that feedback that having that explicitly there, it makes it clearer to parents. But I would say here, that's not going to change because we do have a responsibility when any child, when there's been harm done, that we address the student who is considered, like through an investigation, met that level or that definition. We definitely provide supports there because we want that behavior to change. And then we always provide supports to the victim in that situation.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, I'm not saying we're doing anything differently, or I
Yeah.
believe everything you're saying.
Yeah.
I just, as the whole group knows, I take my vote seriously, so it's
Yeah.
just putting my name to it. If it's not there, I would want to be able to reference to someone, what was not included and why I felt that way. So appreciate everything you're saying, and then I do believe what you're saying, that you're taking all parties into account.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Andrea?
Kathy, is there a regulation to this policy?
So the regulations usually are, in this situation, CABE did the policy and Shipman would do the regulations.
So, but we're not voting on the regulation.
We don't.
Okay. But is that something that we could have added to?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Make sure that it's included.
Included.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, adding that language doesn't change us complying with.
No,
statute.
no.
Right. Again, I'd want to leave it to shipment, but I think Angela's concern is valid.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's an issue.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. I need a motion to approve the policy updates listed below for a second reading as presented. 3514.1, 1250, 1420, and
Yeah,
1420A.
the regulations are here. I'm sorry, the regulations are in here. I got nervous. I was like, I know we had the regulations, so they're here. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I interrupted.
It's your world and I'm.
Yeah.
5131.911 and 5131.911A and 6146.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions. Motion carries 7 to 1. Next up, policy repeals. Okay.
Yeah. So did you each?
Yeah, same, so, okay, do the same thing here, guys. Kathy briefed us on that. I need a motion to repeal the policies listed below for a second reading, 2152, 3510, and 3414. 3514, sorry, 3514. Yes, please.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, adoption of policy 5153, restorative practices response. This is a first reading.
No,
No?
It says first reading, yeah.
It says first reading on the agenda.
this is new policies. It should be second reading.
So, okay, well, it says first reading on the agenda, that's why I say that.
Second reading, right here.
First reading, right here.
Yeah, well, it should, unfortunately, it is a
So
second
never-
reading. You did a first reading at the
That's what I
last board
thought.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next, policy adoption. Need a motion to adopt policy 5153, restorative practices response for second reading.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Nay.
carried. Sorry?
Nay, my
Nay?
comments are the same as.
Same as that one?
before.
Okay,
Yeah.
7 to 1. Thank you. New business, policy updates, first reading. Kathy?
Yes, so this is the update that we talked about in the fall, and now we are working on the change. So if you remember, Title IX had some updates in 2024, and we had approved those updates in the fall. Then those were overturned and reverted back to the 2020 Title IX regulations and requirements. We immediately were able to go back to the administrative regulations of 2020, so that is accurate and current. But Shipman needed time to look at the two policies here, 4118.1 and 5145.5, just to review them. It took some time. I've been knocking on their door. They have lots of emails from me, but they now have updated those with very slight modifications to the 2020 version. So this is not a totally new policy. I mean, we had this policy in place since 2020 to 2024. Then we updated it with the new requirements, and then those requirements were overturned, and we reverted back to 2020. So this is a bit confusing and unique. I don't think in my time here we've ever had a situation like this, but now we're back to the Title IX requirements that reverted back to the 2020 regulations. So that's what those two policies are about. And then the 5111 and the 5111A, admission tuition-free students, it's updated as part of our policy review. It's just providing greater clarity. These are situations that have to do with, I've moved in the middle of a semester. I'd like my child to finish the semester because I want my child to complete their grades for that semester and not leave in the middle. And they then ask my permission in a letter to do that. And depending on a variety of factors, attendance, lots of things, we would say yes or no. Same with a senior who moves in their senior year. This is their last year in Farmington. They may have been here the whole time. And the parents write a letter and ask for the child to stay. In both situations, they have to provide their own transportation, but it's just being a little clearer in the policy. We had Shipman just review it and make sure there's real clarity. There's also a section there that you'll see for special education services. When asking for permission, a lot of times it's very hard for us to continue those things, and that's just something a parent really has to think about before wanting their child to remain, over a period of time when it comes to special education services.
Questions?
I have a
Angela?
couple questions.
Sorry, we have more quick.
Erica can go first.
Okay, Erica?
So my first question is, as I was reviewing this, so 4118.1 and then 41181A, in the first paragraph where it has highlighted under Connecticut law and title, so forth, and then it goes into discrimination or harassment on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. What I notice is that it doesn't have sexual expression it doesn't have expression, which is, if we were to go back up to 5145.5, it does include the phrase expression. So is there a reason why that was left off in the others?
I don't know why. In what, you're saying
So
4118?
so if you go back up to five.
Or
so-
5. You're
Five,
saying
if you go to 5, on both 5145.5 and 5145.5A, on that first paragraph,
It
it does
says-
say basis of sex includes discrimination or harassment on basis of gender identity or expression.
Page 85, if you're.
Yeah,
just down
page,
at-
yeah.
Yeah,
And so
that's-
it includes expression, which I am 100% in support of,
Yeah,
because, well, I'm just.
and then
I'm
you're
gonna-
comparing it
to 4118.1 and 4118.1A. It's the same language, but it does not include the terminology or expression, and I just wanted to know why that was not the case.
yeah, I can definitely, before the next reading, look into that. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just-
personnel
Sorry.
versus.
Yeah,
the
but
one
that's for both.
student.
I understand, but in both of those, whether it's the personnel or the student on both 4118.1 and 41181A and 5145.5, that same sentence is there, except that in the top one, which is 4118.1, and then the A1, does not include or expression. And so for me, I would want to see the term
Yeah, I
and
will-
The
expression.
one does include it and one doesn't, is what you're saying.
That is
That's what I thought,
correct.
okay.
And
Page 85 is correct, is how you would like everything to
Yeah.
say. is what
Exactly.
What
If
page is
we're-
the other
if-
one on?
That I'm having trouble with, Andre.
So-
I know, I can't find the.
Okay, let me go back up. So if you look at page, hold on, let me just scroll on my computer, because I spent a lot of time looking at this today, line by line.
No, it's right after page 21, starts 4118.1.
Yep. So, hold on
It
a
does
second.
not.
So on page, it's,
Yeah,
on
I
the-
clearly see
yeah,
this.
it does clearly say it. So under
Yeah, it's
personnel.
actually in
purple,
red,
in
like
lavender.
highlighted in red,
Yes.
that they add or expression in 5145.5, but they did not add it in 4118.1, so I'm gonna check.
I know, I just can't
It's
find
on-
it in here,
it's
what
under
page?
21.
Oh, you know
I
why?
just did a
It's
search,
after
too.
it, it's out of order.
It's out of order,
It's
is
out
that
of
what
order,
it is?
yeah.
That's
So
what
if you
I
were to
can't
look on
find.
page 80, I don't know, I'm looking at my Chromebook here, so it says 85 out of 149.
Yeah, I can find that one.
Okay, and then if we go back down to it is out of
It's
order.
out, I thought it was
yeah.
missing and then I found it.
No,
So
it's out of order. So if we
Yeah.
scroll all the
So
way
it's,
down.
yeah, it's there for students, it
Yeah.
needs, but personnel, it
page
doesn't show it in
106.
personnel.
It
But it's
doesn't.
there in the student
It's not
one,
in there. I agree with.
the
No,
student
it's not in
policy.
both. It's not in both
No, no.
personnel or student.
Yeah.
Like
No,
not
I'm agreeing
consistent.
with,
Yeah.
I am agreeing with you.
Yes,
It's just out of order, that's why I
Yeah,
can't
it's
find it.
page.
yeah, it just, Dee flipped it for some reason when she
Yeah.
put them in there.
So this is just the first reading?
Yep.
You're getting feedback?
Yes, I'll
And
get
we'll know what
feedback,
it'll look
for
like in the
sure.
second reading.
Yep.
Angela?
I don't have all my notes. I couldn't find it. I have to find it before the next reading. But I remember we were talking about the executive order, and it was, I'm visualizing, it was the meeting in the library. And there was the table, and it was, these were applicable to the executive order.
Yeah.
And it was more than just 3. So my question is, like it was more than just 3 that were voted on based on the executive order, because I
Okay.
remember how I voted on those, and I know it was more than 3. So my question is, why are these only
Because these are the only ones they've done. I'm just waiting for them to
the only
update.
ones they've done? You're saying, okay, those ones haven't come up yet in this
Right.
process.
So I'm thinking they're gonna do it during the model policy updates in the summer. I was just being persistent, I think mostly because retiring, I wanted to get things kind of neat and tidy. And so I wanted to make sure, because these policies come up, especially the student one, it does come up. And when something comes up, we have to provide to the parent the policy and the regulations. And we've been explaining to parents that the regulations are updated, but the policy is not. So there's a bit of urgency that I've asked Shipman to maybe step outside their timeline and do this for us, because I had urgency to get it done. But I'm assuming anything else related to this will be updated during the model policy summer updates, and that you'll see it in the fall.
So did we revert back to those even if they weren't up
Yes, we're
yet?
following, we have to. You know, a lot of times you're approving policies that we're already implementing because we have to do it immediately. We can't wait. That's why the regulations help us. We can put those up immediately. First and second reading takes time. So we have to follow the 2020 Title IX regulations and requirements, and that's what we've been following.
Okay, and then one more question is, again, I didn't do the 100% comparison because there's been so many versions, it's like hard to know.
Yeah.
But this is basically a complete back
Revert
to it
back.
with the few red lines that we see.
Yes.
So just a question of, is there a reason, or just can you explain the red line of eliminating Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972? That seems like a consistent thing that's being redlined. Is there a reason for that? Like, I'm just
The only
curious.
reason I think is maybe it should have been updated the first time that it was updated, you know, in 2020. I'm not sure if you reverted back to that, maybe it wouldn't be as current in its language and its requirements. So I'm assuming those are the slight edits that Shipman made, because it's not reflecting the 1972, it's reflecting the 2020.
My recollection, I think the executive order abrogated some of that language.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't know if it was, so is it like the Title IX of the Education Amendments?
I think they moved away from that in the
Okay.
executive order.
Okay. Yeah,
That's why I think it's being stricken.
okay. If that's the, I don't know.
I'm not 100%
Can you
sure,
just
but that's my
confirm
recollection.
if that, whatever that reasoning is?
Yes, I can find out, but
Or it
I'm
might have been a case-
assuming
or it
that
might
it
have been a
doesn't
case, or it might
reflect
have been a
that any
case.
longer.
It might have been a case.
I'm
but
sorry,
there was
Kathy, can
something.
you say that
Yeah.
again? I didn't.
There might have been a case. I think something, I have a
Okay.
recollection about that. That might have been the case out of Kentucky.
I have a follow-up on that. So if the Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 are being redlined, it's still on page 82. It's not redlined there.
I'll continue to check with
Yeah.
Shipman. I think maybe
Like, is it
they
gonna-
were wanting to adhere to my request quickly, maybe, but I will check why take out the 1972, why keep it in different parts, and it
Yeah.
could just be that
Yeah,
they
is there
were-
a reason to keep it in certain
Yeah.
sections and not
Yeah.
in others?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have one more question then.
Yes.
For clarity. So Angela, you mentioned that there was 3, and I do remember that day. There was 3. You said there was 3 specific.
Here, so
these-
the first bullet is the 2, because then, and like
Yeah.
on the second column there, it says the Title IX requirements revert back. Then the second bullet here is the third one, that's the third policy I'm quoting. And then Kathy says the Title IX requirements revert back. So those are the 3 that we're discussing today.
it could have been the bullying policy. I'm thinking it might be the bullying policy because it potentially
Okay.
is. And as you know, that's being updated.
Yeah, I'd have to
yeah.
look, I couldn't find
Yeah,
a
yeah.
chart to be
I
fair,
can-
so I
yeah,
don't
I
know
can look.
exactly which one, but I thought it was a few others that
Okay.
related to it, so.
Okay. I mean, if you went back.
There's a non-discrimination policy, a separate non-discrimination policy as well in the policies, and I don't remember if it was that, but I can go back and look.
Yeah, if you look at the PowerPoint from that time, you'll see all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, can I get a motion to approve the policy update listed below for a first reading as presented? 4118.1 and 4118A, 5145.5, and 5111 and 5111A.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would just ask you, when you do the agenda next week, when we're talking about policies, keep it to one.
What'd you say?
So when we do the agenda for next, when we get to policies at the next agenda, just keep it on this. No more policies. I think we're done for the year. All right, item 8B, new course approvals.
Okay, so the courses we're going to talk about tonight were all previously presented to the Board of Education Curriculum Subcommittee. So just as a curriculum is a living document, a program of studies is a living document, and ultimately it should be responsive to the needs and interests of our students and changing conceptions of college and career readiness in a modernizing world. So as the board is aware, the science department completed a program review last year, and out of that program review came some clear lines for improvement in the department to both modernize our course offerings and best prepare our students for college and career readiness. And so the courses that you see before you out of the science department all come out of that program review, and there's 3 being brought forward. In the area of computer science, there's a data science course that's described there. It's a half-credit elective, and it would be placed within the existing Farmington High School computer science pathway. There's an introduction to chemical engineering course that would serve, it's also a half-year elective open to students in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, as is the data science course. That would serve as an optional prerequisite to AP chemistry while also connecting to the biomedical sciences pathway that the board approved last year. And that's a perfect segue into the 3rd science course offering. This one is a full year course. This would be open to students in grades 10, 11, and 12. And this is a Project Lead the Way Human Body Systems course. The reason that this is open to students only in grades 10 through 12 is it's the 2nd full year course in the Project Lead the Way biomedical science program. It's designed to follow principles of biomedical science as a prerequisite. Remember, Project Lead the Way is a nationally accredited science program with dual credits out of the University of New Haven. One additional course, an exciting one, digital sound design. So if you know anything about modern music, it's not only performed on instruments, it's made on computers, and there's a lot of student interest around digital sound design. Digital sound design is a form of engineering, sound engineering. So this course would expose students to mixing and editing and splicing to create music, and also to create things like sounds for video games and film soundtracks and various applications in multimedia realms, podcasting. And just a quick note about this course, we would take advantage of our grant-funded computer lab that was part of the engineering grant that we obtained. And we're very fortunate in that our music department leader, Frank Quinn, helped to launch a very similar course in his previous district, not using Apple hardware and software, which is incredibly expensive, and he's found a more cost-effective way to do it using existing PC equipment in the district. And I would just present quickly to the board that these courses are really conceptualized almost a year before this moment at the podium, and they go into the high school program of studies as options for students pending board approval. So students have seen these course descriptions in the program of studies and had the opportunity to select them for potential inclusion in their schedules next year. And for the data science course, we had 66 total student requests, so about 3 full sections worth of student interest. In the Introduction to Chemical Engineering course, we had 36 total student requests. In the Project Lead the Way course, we had 23 total student requests. And remember, that's a course that requires a prerequisite course, so that 23 number is still really impressive for a 2-year pathway. In Digital Sound Design, we had 32 total student requests. So all of these courses that we're bringing before the board tonight for consideration, there's a lot of student interest, and we have the capacity within our teacher FTE and our budget to offer these courses. happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, anyone? Awesome, Eric. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
There are no new textbook requests.
I wasn't going to call you forward for that.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Actually, you have, this is your first year here. We've had significant discussions on textbook additions.
Bill, we need a motion to approve the.
Yes, I know that. We need a motion to approve the first reading of the new courses as presented to be implemented in the 2025-2026 school year.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Noah Wallace Fund.
So Veronica is going to provide an overview and answer any questions.
So you can see, so you can see in the report that a group of us met about 2 weeks ago, and we were able to review the financial status of this fund and to consider proposals. We were happy to find out that the fund is doing well, and that we had anywhere between $40,000 and $45,000 to be able to allocate to various projects that were submitted for consideration. We were able to allocate $44,694.53 to 7 projects out of the 10. There were 10 that were submitted. But we also, in that committee, we also committed to finding other ways to support the 3 projects that we're not able to fund through Noah Wallace, through other grant opportunities that we have, as many of them were related to our ELL students, which you all know that we, try to do everything possible to support funding for any enhancements that we can there. And so I just want to thank the committee for helping to choose the projects that you see here. I want to also say that the nice thing about this funding is that these are funds that are used to accomplish things that wouldn't be in our everyday operating budget. They have a great impact on the joy and wonder of learning in our district, but maybe things that would not be accomplished through the regular funding. And so rather than go through all the, you can see there, pretty lengthy summaries of what each project is about. But just in summary, I would say the 7 projects, 2 of them emphasize the importance of play and learning in classrooms that are play-based and game-based. And so it supports the selection and the funding of the games that really engage students in math and literacy and improves their outcomes because they've played the games. So 2 of the projects are for that. 2 projects provide very specialized equipment that enhance the experience of students who are in our SLC or our specialized learning centers classroom. So you can see some of the interesting and specialized equipment that people have asked for there. One project will support a school store at Westwoods, and so that's another great opportunity for some of our students who are also in a specialized learning center to get real life skills, practice social skills, and practice numeracy skills by running a school store. So real life application, part of our transition planning for our students that goes across their entire span of our schools. And then 2 projects are funding really specialized art, I don't know, I guess not supplies, but like equipment. One of which is an interactive, cool interactive wall where students will be able to interact with the wall and sort of understand, that art is something that can be interacted with in public spaces. So we're really excited about those art projects as well. So I really want to thank the teachers who thoughtfully put together these projects. And this is just sort of the first step of their process. The first step was, submitting a project and a proposal. And now it's carrying that out so that our students have access to all these wonderful and unique opportunities. So thank you to them. They'll get a letter of congratulations at the conclusion of this meeting that will go out to them with a congratulations. And I'll be sure to communicate with all of them, and including people who didn't receive the funding, about next steps, about how can we still accomplish some of the goals that they set forth in their proposals. But again, it's just a thrill to have this sort of enhancement to our programming, and then to see the students as they experience, what was able to be accomplished through this funding. So thank you to the committee and to the teachers who submit these proposals.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Noah Wallace Fund projects as presented for a total of $44,694.53?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, consideration of the Assistant Superintendent Finance Report. Dan.
Hi again. Just giving a quick budget update for the March. So if you take a look, overall budget is trending well as we're moving to the last half of the year. At this point we can start getting more what we call actuals as opposed to projections, and so we can kind of help see where we're going as far as with encumbrances and obligations, and be able to take a look at that. Overall, I would say we're looking really good. Barring things that can always happen, big ticket items, whether it was, the lift at East Farms or something else. So there's still always some variability and volatility that may happen, but if we can continue on this path, I expect us to be in very good shape. One area that you might see kind of this blip is we're still, Eversource and us are working on this billing discrepancy. They have us as owing, kind of having an outstanding balance across 3 different schools. We've been asking them for a few months now to kind of show us the backup for that. They haven't been able to do that. I think probably when it's all said and done, there's probably some, there is probably some balance there. So we're earmarking some money to be able to kind of pay that balance off. We think that's due to, I think within the last year or so, we were trying to work on making the statements more clear. Sometimes they had a couple schools bunched together, and we tried separating things. And so we think sometimes that as they separated and created different accounts, that either some balances that didn't get sent to us or some payments didn't get credited. And so, like I said, we're still kind of working on this back and forth. And, I'll say I'd be lying if I didn't say it's creating a level of frustration in our finance office, but we will continue to work with them diligently on that. But having said that, even if we do need to owe the balance, I think we'll be able to cover that without having a too significant impact on the overall operating budget for the year. And so, but like I said, other than that, what you won't see here, and we haven't gotten that final excess cost payment that we thought, that about that $300,000 that the state had kind of passed. So right now we do believe that, that amount plus or minus, a little bit, we're going to be able to earmark and put into the non-lapsing account, which through Board of Ed policy 3170 allows us to kind of carry that over. So typically any excess money goes back to the town. The Board of Ed is allowed to carry some of that over as a non-lapsing account up to, I believe it's 2% or 2% of the total budget is the max you can do. This will be well under it. And then what happens is it gets carried over, and then we would seek the Board of Ed to approve it, your approval for how we would expend that. And, ideally we'd probably be expending that, I would imagine, on, maybe an extension of major projects, special services, just to be able to kind of, which then allows us to deal with less volatility in the operating budget, because if we needed to, we would kind of have this account to be able to use. So it just provides us another level of flexibility. So that's the March update. Happy to answer any questions.
So, excuse me, Phil. Will there be a line item here for that excess account there?
Yeah, I would imagine that, in there within the kind of the lines, we'll have, non-lapsing account labeled in there. My understanding is the first time Farmington is utilizing the non-lapsing account, so we're still kind of getting some guidance from Shipman, and I'm reaching out to some other schools who have done it to kind of get some, guidance and structures on best practices and how to do that.
Because currently there is funding in there, right?
In the
In
current,
that account?
currently there, we have not
Sorry,
created
the
a
non-lapsing.
we have not created a non-lapsing account.
Yeah, okay.
We haven't done it yet.
We haven't hit up the end of the fiscal year yet.
Oh, the end of the.
This is the
Yeah,
first
'cause
year we
this is
can
the
do it.
first
This is
year.
the first year we can do it, right?
Yeah, so we don't have it yet.
Thank you.
ask a question?
Sure.
Asking a question regarding the transportation services contract. Where it says, so, where do we settle on any penalties, issues? Was there any?
We did that back in December.
We did, but anything in the sense of review since December on around transportation issues and any kind of penalties that may be considered? Since there's been some disruptions in bus transportation?
Well, like we said back then, if a bus doesn't run, we're not charged for it. So right then and there, we're not, paying for a bus that doesn't run. And they, for periods of time, they can have a lot of people out sick and things can happen. So with that billing process, we're not going to get charged for that. For any
Yeah,
time.
so when we get our invoices, that would be about, whether it's consolidating runs or, various things. And so you would see just in the invoice being less for our formal charge. The penalties is when there's, the breaches of the contract, I forget, I think it's over 60 minutes or 90 minutes or something. Those are when there's, that. So there's, the kind of the fines and violations. And then there's just, if something doesn't run, we don't get charged for it. And just for that month, the overall invoice is just lowered.
And so that is applicable to the ones where you're consolidating certain routes? Is that it?
Yeah, so sometimes, like I said, it would be, if whether it's a consolidation route or whether it's, let's say we don't have to run a late bus, or, a variety of other, variations or changes in the routes or the runs.
And so how would we know through this how that's reflected, or that it's either happened or not happened? Would we know through this, or would this be through a different area?
This is kind of more, at the macro level, it would be more.
But you said that you get the monthly invoices.
We get the
right?
monthly invoices, yes.
So would we see any of that in?
We don't typically show the
in
monthly invoices, in the Board of Ed report.
Okay, no, just wondering,
Well,
because
I
I
would
know
say-
transportation is a line item here, so I just wanted to see.
Yeah, it's
where-
really like all in
In.
and not,
Yeah.
but
No,
I mean, you would see savings in that from what we budgeted if we're not being charged for buses that we budgeted for.
Yeah, so we would see a
Yeah.
savings, okay.
Yeah, and I think, to see, the I think it's the 40,000,
Yeah,
in the red. That really, like I said, is more in the special services, extra van runs and other pieces that have kind of come up. I think if we just took out the regular ed transportation, I believe we would still be in the black on that, and so saving money, and that's in addition to currently the $50,000, $55,000 that were in the black on gasoline, on efficiencies in there. So overall, I think transportation is running really well. And then, for the special services, we will probably be able to apply some of the excess cost, when we get, some of that money in, even beyond the 300,000, when we get some of that, we will be able to apply that to transportation to bring that down. So I actually expect transportation to be pretty close to the budgeted amount by the end of the year. Yeah?
Angela?
It doesn't have to be like now for a broader conversation on it, but just a thought or something to consider. Like, obviously, we like seeing savings, so that's great. But in this situation, I would actually prefer not to see savings, but to see like more bus runs potentially. Like, I think there's just a lot of discussion still about this consolidating of runs. So I think it's great if we get money back, but I think it's the inconvenience it's to the families and to the students probably supersedes the I don't even know what we get back. So are we just constantly looking at that, or can there be like, after a year, because, we kind of had this conversation, and then I'm assuming there'll be some type of evaluation after a year's time. Can we look at even like bus participation, even in the morning runs? Like, are people just giving up and driving their kids to school because the bus isn't, what is success? Like, is success that we're not hearing complaints, or is success that people have just gone alternate ways to kind of make their family situation work better? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just.
No, it's a great, it's a great
Dan,
question.
I want to kind of wait. So when you started out your question, I mean, I'm absolutely comfortable with questions about transportation as a line item, but I mean, I'm not blind or naive to the challenges we have with transportation. That's kind of beyond the agenda item, though.
That's fine, that's fine.
So what I would say is, we have a meeting coming up in June, perhaps we can add to the agenda a conversation about
Sure.
where we are with the bus company. That would give you an opportunity to kind of prepare, review everything, and I don't want anybody caught off guard with this
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, it's fair if you guys kind of look
Yeah,
at all
no,
your
no,
data.
that's
So you
totally
so
fine.
you have, more information to answer the questions. I think so.
I mean,
Go ahead.
we've been told that they are actually going to have more drivers in the coming year because they're not going to have, they've not even, they're, one of their towns.
One of the
went out
t-
to
one of the
bid, And they
towns-
did not bid on it. So they're gonna have an excess of drivers next year. So we're hoping that this resolves itself with an excess of drivers. That's our problem.
Yeah.
Isn't lack of drivers, and when someone's out, if you don't have an excess, you can't cover it. It's just like us when a teacher's out, if we don't have a substitute, it's really a challenge in a school to not have a substitute. They just don't have enough drivers, but I think they recognize that, and they want to do a great job in the districts that they are in and they've committed to. So they didn't even bid on a contract. And so all those drivers are going to be available to us and to other districts that have specialties. So I feel like, yes, there are a lot of challenges for sure, but there may be some good news on the horizon. That's what I'm hoping
Yeah.
for, given
Yeah,
this
we can
news.
discuss it more.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
Yeah, I'd say
you know,
maybe
Yeah.
just back
Sure.
up to the
Yep.
agenda for our next
Yeah.
meeting. Good kind of year-end, kind of let's just check
Yeah.
in on it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the March financial statement as presented?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, executive session? None. Yay. Next up, item 12, report of the board chair. Going to remind everybody, if you haven't had an opportunity to buy your tickets for Kathy's celebration and retirement, tickets are on sale through May 16th. And the only reason why I say that is because the money goes to the foundation. So that's why I'm encouraging people. If you can't make it, you can donate $50 to the foundation. We have our invitation for the Eid celebration, Saturday, May 31st. I encourage anybody who can attend to try and get there. Don't really have much more in terms of an update. I mean, we've been working all together very closely and diligently on the succession plan, so to speak, and more to come on that. Thank you all for all your hard work on that. I can represent to the community that everybody on this board, every person on this board has extended a significant amount of time away from their families on difficult nights and weekends to get this right. So I just want to thank you all for that. That's really, really important. And thank your families for granting us the grace to allow you to participate in this. With that being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.